Hi, this is Reversion. Normally, this would be a podcast of the broadcast of Jesus the Promised Messiah of Judaism from Radio Maria, broadcast today, December 28th, 2019. However, due to technical difficulties, I was unable to record the introduction to the broadcast, so I am making it separately, and then we will go into the broadcast as it went out over the air. So, my guest for today is a woman named Blanka from Croatia, who is an Olympic medalist in the high jump, but that's not why she's on. She's on because she has a most remarkable reversion experience as a Olympic athlete. She grew up very far away from the faith, although nominally Catholic, with a very worldly and obviously competitive attitude, and very involved in sports. And then, as an indirect result of having some misfortunes or apparent misfortunes, she entered into a very passionate personal relationship with Jesus through the Catholic Church, in the Catholic Church. And I invited her on to give her witness testimony. So without further ado, I will transfer the show now to Blanka's witness testimony. By the way, if you wish to look her up, find out more about her, if you just Google Blanka, Blanka, Croatian high jump, something like that, and you'll find her all over the internet and YouTube. So with that, let's go to Blanka's witness testimony of how she entered fully into her Catholic faith. Start by just introducing yourself, about like who you are and who you are in the eyes of the world, so to speak, and then your faith journey.
Okay, so my name is Blanka Vlasic, and I live in Split, Croatia. Many of your listeners maybe know the place that is very near Split, Međugorje. It's a pilgrimage place to Our Lady. So I'm there, I'm here. And I'm a professional high jumper. I come from a sports family, and I've been doing sport since I was one. And my both parents were athletes, and my father was my coach my whole career. So I started to do track and field pretty early, but decided to do specifically high jump when I was around 13. And my father almost immediately recognized the huge potential, a huge talent for that sport, that event. And I was kind of growing up with a notion that he put in my head that one day I will become a world champion. So it was really inspirational environment. I was highly motivated to achieve that goal, even though the circumstances in Split for high-level athlete weren't great. You know, we didn't have an indoor, and we were struggling with equipment, and basically doing a lot of things on our own, improvising, and it was mostly a family battle. And things were tough, and many times we would have to borrow money so just so I could go to a competition. So it was kind of like we were doing it in spite of the circumstances. And but things were great, working great for us. Result was getting better and better each year. So at the age of 16, I qualified for my first Olympic Games. I was one of the youngest attendants in Sydney, and that was practically the turning point of my career, when I started to be more of a public figure, and people started to know my name in Croatia, and I kind of lost my private life, even though I'm a very private person. But there was a lot of interviews, a lot of public opinion, and I had to learn how to deal with that at that early stage. Since I was 16, since my first Olympic Games, things were pretty good for me. I won two-time gold. I was two-time world junior champion, and started to do some good things in the major league. But around 2004, after my second Olympic Games in Athens, I got sick. I got a thyroid problem. So 2005, I had to remove it. And I guess the thyroid was a big problem for me. So once I got rid of it, I started to do extraordinary results, started to jump really high. And I was, let's say, a big hope of track and field world to break a world record that was set, I think, in 1989. Now, I don't know in feet, but it is 209 centimeters. And at 2007 in Osaka, I won my first big medal. It was World Championship gold, and I was jumping regularly over 2 meters and approaching that figure of a world record. At 2010, again, I won a world championship for the second time, and that year I jumped 208, so only 1 centimeter less than world record. But I was kind of restless, because I was so close, and I wanted to have it. I also won a silver medal in Beijing Olympic Games. And then again in Rio 2016, I won bronze medal. And in between, I won 2 silver medals in world championships. So my career was pretty great. And I'm so grateful for all the opportunities, considering where I have started and how far I've come with all my support team. And, it's just, I'm humbled looking at from this perspective. But back then, when I was still, let's say, far away from God, it was hard for me to appreciate just the opportunity that I was given, because I always wanted more. I was never satisfied. And, in high jump, there's always, the bar always falls down. You end up as a loser, you make one height, but then you try another one, and you try until you make 3 false attempts, right? So it was always kind of, excitement for the winning and for jumping that height, but then at the end, always like, oh, what could have I done better? And thinking about the next competition, and I was always chasing something, and it's like you always want to come back to that one moment when the bar stays and you're happy, but it only lasts for a couple of minutes, and then the next height comes, the next barrier, the next challenge. So it was kind of always a restless emotion in my inside of me, but also professional sport is very demanding. it takes a lot to stay focused, to stay, to have control over yourself all the time, to make a lot of sacrifices. And I always tell to people, what you see on TV, that is just like 5% of the whole story. Most of the professional careers are filled with tears and sweat that people don't see, because the greatest story is actually is going on behind the scene, in every practice, in every day that you decide you want to be better than before. And I was kind of satisfied with my life, even though I said, I was struggling every day, but it was kind of, for the big goal, for the bigger goal, greater goal. And I was happy with the things, how things were, until injury happened. And injury is, as you know, the worst nightmare of every athlete. It happened, it started gradually to become more and more painful in my Achilles heel at 2011. But then at 2012, I wasn't able to move forward with my practice, and I had to go to surgery beginning of 2012. And that year was were Olympic Games in London. And everybody said, the doctor said, oh, it's just a minor procedure. You will be ready for Olympic Games. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it as soon as possible. But then once they got in, they saw how my ankle was completely distorted from all the jumping, and they thought it will take only 30 minutes to clean the things up. But then once they got in, it was like a 2.5 hour surgery. And of course, the recovery, the time of recovery was jeopardized. The time that they thought will be enough. And afterwards, I had a lot of complications. I got infection that stopped my recovery completely. So, long story short, I watched London Olympic Games from my couch, feeling miserable and disappointed and sad. And that year completely was like very gray for me, because I realized that I didn't know who I was if I wasn't jumping. So my identity was Blanka, athlete, high jumper. And once that was taken away from me, I was feeling pretty lost. And in that period, when the ground below you is shaken, you start to ask important questions, because you are forced to look, to search a little deeper in order to find a meaning in life that doesn't look like your own anymore. And I was kind of like, I remember that whole year I was going from one doctor to the other. Wherever, I thought I will find an answer for a faster recovery, I would go. So in Europe, anywhere, just name it, I would just like sit in a plane and go and see what this doctor thinks. But predictions were different, and nobody could tell me exactly when I'm going to be well and when I'm going to jump again. And that's the only thing I was worried about. So I was thinking, my life is over if I will never jump again. So that was my the only thing that was in my mind. And it's not very good, to live with only one possible acceptable solution. But that's how I was approaching things. I know those are not the things that we should hang on to, but God gave me the gift of this consolation. I was feeling really, really good every I started to go to mass every day, and my whole life changed. I knew immediately what was wrong, what I was doing wrong, and immediately I started to fix it. But as I was still injured, but some kind of courage inside of me told me, you should start to jump again. You should start to compete again. So that soon after my first competition, my first comeback was in New York, actually, in May, I think, that year. And yeah, I was struggling with pain, but then slowly, I got better. I found the right physio for my treatments. So by the end of that year, I was pain free. During that period, as I am a public person, you just cannot hide that. When you belong to Christ, you cannot hide it, and it's just it pours out of you. So I didn't have a very good experience with public opinion about my conversion, and you know how people are. You just, oh yeah, what now she's like a saint or stuff like, people just mocking. And I lost all of my sponsors, and because I started to talk publicly about values, about things that I think are good, about family, about in general what Catholic Church supports, and about the real values that should be put forward and should be restored in our society. I wasn't doing that without, just because, but I was asked, and I didn't hide, what I believe now. I couldn't hide, But during all that time, I got also courage to testify for Christ, and I wasn't afraid because Christ told us we will be what is the word? Persecuted, yeah, and yeah, persecuted, and I said, okay, he said that, and he said that we are blessed because of that. So who am I going to trust? People or Christ? So I said, it's a no-brainer. So every time I was persecuted in Christ's name because of Christ, I felt really proud that I could handle just a little bit of misery for him. So that was kind of my power, and people often say, because I started to go, to parishes, and especially to testify to young people, and in one of the most one of the regular question is always, how do you handle that? Because people today are so worried about their appearance, reputation, and that they want to be liked by everyone on social media and everywhere. That became our food. And then, I think that if just young people could understand that that is not what makes you happy, things would be so much different, and they would be free to be who they are, and not wanting to be someone else. So I'm very grateful for that courage that Christ gave me. As I said, by the end of that year, I was pain free, but then very soon after that, I started to experience the same pain on the other leg. So the same situation, 2016, I was beginning of the year. So same situation 4 years later, Olympic year, 2016, I need to go to the surgery. So it's like same circumstances, but I'm different. It's like God is saying to me now, how you're going to deal with this when I'm by your side, when when you are aware that I'm by your side. So it was completely different, definitely different experience. I remember I went to the surgery and I fell asleep, just praying rosary. And sure, I wanted to go. I wanted to go to that Olympic Games, to Rio. I wanted to come back. That feeling, that fighter inside of me, the didn't die. But it was just kind of, okay, I'm suffering again, but I know that I can offer this sacrifice, and every pain that I'm going through is not just for nothing. It has a special value in Christ's eyes when you offer it to Him. So every moment of my life, good and especially bad, especially painful moments, became my greatest assets. And I was running away all the time from the pain, from disappointment. I didn't know before how to handle that, but now, Christ just gave me this whole new perspective of how actually, when I'm suffering, I'm closer to Him than ever. So again, the surgery, I mean, it was a successful surgery, but they said it will be, short recovery. It didn't. I was already in my past my 30s without thyroid, so my recovery was very slow. It was a bone surgery. They needed to cut a piece of my bone, so that was that was very serious injury. So again, long story short, beginning of summer, I still couldn't run without pain. I couldn't even imagine to jump without pain. But I was going through, practice, and I said, okay, it will be better. It's only one competition. I will make it through. But my preparation was anything but, on a high level. I was training on one healthy leg and doing whatever I could without pain on this other leg. 1 month before Rio Olympic Games, I had to stop jumping at all because it was so painful the morning after that I couldn't walk. So I needed to take 10 days of recovery and rest after one jumping session. So I said, my team and myself, we decided to stop jumping completely and just wait for Rio to jump for the first time after a month or two. And in addition to that, I've shortened my approach. So usually I jump with 10 steps, and I said, okay, 10 steps, that's a long approach. If I do it with 6 steps, that means 4 steps less pain. So I was like, let's do it like that. And then because I wasn't jumping in practice, I didn't have chance to make to make it perfect, to exercise this new technique, new kind of approach. So I was just kind of preparing mentally in my head. I was like imagining how it should look like, and I was practicing high jump in my head, only in my head. So that was kind of strangely brave, but I said to my dad, my coaches, I feel I need to go. I know it sounds crazy. I'm a complete outsider, but I have a lot of experience. I will not forget to jump overnight. I will come there and just see what happens. And I remember that when I boarded a plane to Rio, I had a major panic attack because it isn't natural for a body to go into the battle injured. Everything inside of me was just like pushing me away from that challenge because I knew deep inside I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready mentally. I wasn't ready physically. Olympic Games, people come there, ready and on in their like prime and in top shape, and I'm coming there like I lost my way. I'm just I'm going to Rio. Here I come. I have nothing to offer, but I came. And then I remember I was like praying every day with my dad and crying a lot, because that's like, I felt really anxious because here, as I said, I'm going to the battle completely unprepared, but I prayed a lot. And there was a small improvised chapel in the village. I guess there was a chapel in every Olympic village, in every Olympic Games that I went to, but this time I was aware of it for the first time. And I went to the mass. I had opportunity to go to the mass every day before my event. So I was comforted spiritually, very comforted on a daily basis. The plan was to take injection of painkillers before qualification and the finals, because I needed to go through qualification to jump a standard, and then the first 12 girls go into the finals, or whoever jumps the standard height. So for the first time, I took that injection, and I remember that morning qualification round, I went into the stadium and I said, okay, I mean, I'm not feeling my leg because of this from the knee down, but I'm not feeling pain. So I guess I can work with that, you know. So I was there, not feeling my leg, had to deal with this new approach that I just practiced in my mind. And I was kind of like really happy just to be there. I mean, back before, I was like such a big perfectionist that everything had to be just perfect in order for me to be like relaxed in competition, you know. But here I am, you know, in Rio, having no clue what I'm doing, and just, you know, warming up and saying, I remember saying, thank you, God, for this opportunity. Thank you that I can be here in this moment, present, doing the thing that I love, no matter in which condition I am. So I went into the finals. I jumped the standard height, and the finals were 2 days after. And I said to myself, okay, same scenario. I will get that injection and everything, you know, and I will figure things as it goes, as they go. But just before the finals, before I had to go into the stadium, and I was lying on the bed and receiving that injection, but I realized, because I was facing down, I realized there was some kind of commotion, and things didn't go as smooth as 2 days, as smoothly as 2 days before. But nobody, you know, from my team told me anything. I just felt that like something was wrong, and that injection took more time than usual. What happened is that doctor didn't hit the spot. He didn't go deep enough with the injection, because he hit the scar from the surgery. So he just pulled out too early. So the medicine, the painkiller, didn't go deep enough. So after half an hour, I already started to feel every pain, every pain that is in the book. I started to feel in my foot, and it wasn't just an ordinary pain. It was like a knife was in my Achilles. It was just, I thought it was impossible to do even one jump. I went inside and I looked and I was jumping, you know, struggling, you know. I was thinking, if I take off my spikes, you know, the shoes that I'm jumping in, the problem is that I cannot put it on again because it was so painful. So I was like, what am I going to do? You know, I cannot rest my leg between jumps. You know, I'm completely unable to run in synchronized motion. My foot is so painful. And for the first time in my career, I turned to my coach on the stand and I said, what should I do? Should I quit now? That was the first time I said that. And he said, no, you're here now, stay and fight. And I was like roaring, you know, and just like trying to, you know, push myself, you know, not to feel this pain, but it was kind of impossible. And I was praying a lot, you know, God is my shepherd, you know, all the time, the whole time. And it was really interesting thing that Olympic Games, that day, I won bronze medal. To be honest, Roy, all the girls in that competition that day were 50% more ready than I was. I didn't stood a chance. The height for the first, second, and third place was the same. The only thing why I won third place is because I jumped my height from the second attempt. So you have 3 attempts, and everything matters. Everything is important from which attempt you jump it. And that height, 197 centimeters, it was below 2 meters. It was very poor height to win a medal in Olympic Games. Just in 2008, I jumped 205, and it wasn't enough for the gold. It was enough. It was only silver. And now, 2016, I jumped poorly, like 197, and I won bronze medal. I was so at the end, I was so distracted. I was so tired from this pain and from this stress that I wasn't able even to be happy. I was just happy that it was over and that I didn't have to go through that again. But looking back, I recognize this medal as a really big teaching moment from my God, because God speaks to us in the areas of our interests, because those areas are in those areas we speak we understand the language. So sport was my world, and He spoke to me through my world, and it was as if He told me, okay, do you see in which condition you came to that Olympic Games? You were completely unprepared. You were miserable. You were in pain. You were completely undeserving for any medal, and a complete outsider, And from that, because just you were there, that was enough for me to do a miracle. And I'm not saying to all these people, that are trying to to go to Olympic Games, just show up. No, that's not the case. It wasn't about the medal. It was the lesson for me. Like, this is how this is who you are, and this is how you should always be in my present. You are completely useless without me, and you are always completely dependent on me, and this is okay. And this is what I can work with because you showed up. So every time I started to my ego, comes to the surface, I remember that moment, and I remember who am I in reality, and that I am nothing. But I know that just because I'm here and I say to my God, I'm here and I'm love you, and it's not perfect. I'm imperfect, but this is what I have. And I trust that you can do miracles with this small thing that I have. I think that, it just brings me back to the center, and just, I immediately forget about, my ego and my plans and, my fixations. So that was kind of like the greatest lesson that I got. I mean, there were a lot of great lessons during these past few years. And my parents, after my conversion, and my brother conversion, my parents got married in church after 30 years of civil marriage. And we all attended. I have 3 brothers, and we all received communion. So it was kind of a special moment. And, my parents go to church every Sunday, and it was kind of a big change for my whole family. So there were more miracles in my life, and are more miracles in my life than just that medal from Rio. But it was kind of, in my area of interest, and I think it is always a nice story to tell. So yeah.
In that first experience, when you saw so many truths of the faith, Did you see about eternity? Did you see about the moral content of actions? Did you see about divine providence? Did you see about God's personal knowledge of you and love for you?
I was just deeply aware, first of all, the personal relationship. And from that moment on, I never had a issue about how personal it is the most personal it can get. So, people saying, oh yeah, God doesn't, I've heard about that. Like when I would win a medal, I would thank God for my success. And then people would say, oh yeah, God has nothing, better to do than, look at you jump and care about your medals. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense, because he knows every thought, even before I think it. So it's that personal. And I was aware of that. I was aware of the closeness. And I remember just laying in my bed that night, and I said, okay, I'm good. I'm safe now. And it's just that feeling of being safe because I'm on the right path now and nothing can hurt me. And I said to myself, if I die now, if I don't wake up tomorrow, everything is fine. It's good. I'm safe now. And that was very emotional convert. I wasn't very people were running away from me because I wanted to make everyone Catholics right away. And I wanted everyone to see what I see and to feel what I feel. But after a few months, I started to, of course, realize that, it's, the testimony shouldn't always be with words. It should be with my life. And, like when you fall in love with someone, then those first months are like, yeah, everything is great, everything is peachy, everything is perfect. But, that is just one of the God's, I think, ways to draw you deeper. He gives you that emotions in the beginning, but then slowly you realize that conversion is it's a path. It just God wants my yes, my fiat every day. And every day that yes to him is imperfect. And I will spend my lifetime, my life, to try to make it less imperfect. And the greatest battles that I'm experiencing and that I'm aware now are happening behind the scenes, away from people clapping, people cheering, because once once God gives you light, then you see all the mess in your house, you see all the dirt, and you feel urge, you need to, start to deal with that. And that's very long and hard process. And it's hurtful, you need to deal with your ego, you need to see who you are, the truth about yourself, the naked truth. It's painful, but God's mercy is so bigger, so much bigger than that all of our flaws, that is actually what keeps us alive. Otherwise, we couldn't live with ourselves and the truth about our misery. That's what I think. So, slowly he started to introduce me with my flaws. But, I see now that what he gives, the light and the knowledge about myself that I receive now, I couldn't handle 2 years ago. And that's how I know that, I'm on the right track and everything is just going, it's a slow pace, but it's going in the right direction. And, and all these battles, spiritual battles, are just happening, in a personal prayer, inside of my soul, in quietness of my soul, and sometimes in the darkness of my soul. And it's not always uphill, I still haven't done one competition after 2016. So I'm kind of still struggling, with if I'm going to come back or not. So my next step was after my conversion and after Rio was, to accept that I will not jump again, because that is also a possibility. And Roy, I should tell you, that was a challenge. That was nothing compared to all those, pain of injury, and, that was nothing. But when I realized that even thought about me quitting the jumping made me like really nervous, and I would start to sweat, because I had a big fear of what I will do next. I don't know how to do anything. The only thing I know how to jump. And then I said to myself, okay, the fear is present here. That means we need to deal with that. So the only thing what I could do is just offer it to God every day. I was praying about it. I said to myself, I don't know how to deal with it. I would say to God, I don't know how to take away this fear. I don't know, you can do it. So the only thing I can do is just offer it and talk about it to you every day. So slowly, it didn't happen overnight, but slowly I started to think about, okay, what are possibilities about me after career? I wasn't nervous to talk about me quitting, and I started not to feel like a loser if I quit. And now I feel like, okay, things can go both ways, and whichever way it will be, it's because it's God's will. I don't want to do anything that is not God's will. And to be in sync with that will, the relationship with God needs to be, alive every day. And what I like to talk about, when I testify in my testimonies, it's the power of cross. And that was like, God enters through cracks in the walls, cracks in the windows, cracks, like light comes through the cracks. And if your soul doesn't have a crack, God, it's very hard to God. I mean, quote unquote hard. It's not hard, but that's the language I'm going to use. It's very hard for God to enter. So that's why the cracks are necessary. I'm sure God doesn't want us to suffer. That's not what He wants. But He wants us to spend eternity with Him. What are these few years comparing to the eternity? I'm not okay with not thinking about eternity. I'm very concerned how I'm going to spend it. So if it took a few cracks in my soul, a few pains, a few crosses, in order for God to come into my life and to win me over, and to make sure that I'm going to spend eternity with Him, well, I'm completely okay with that. That's nothing. So it's just His philosophy, because we don't listen. Unfortunately, we don't listen. If there was another way, easier way, I'm sure, He would use it. But unfortunately, we are very stubborn. And the only thing when we humble ourselves is when we experience cross. That is the only time when we are willing to listen. So that's why I'm like, don't run away from cross. That's a huge blessing. When be sure when cross is present, Jesus is approaching, and that's the most comforting thing. That's what makes this life, it makes sense. People searching for meaning, young people searching for meaning. This is the meaning. Every situation in life is a blessing. Because crosses comes, sickness, illness, relationship problems, family problems. No one is protected. How you are going to deal with that, because that is a huge part of your life. You cannot just block it. Otherwise, you're living half life. And God gives you the meaning and says, okay, not only that this is something that you need to bear, but these moments are the most precious moments of your life. So that's kind of always, the thought that, blows my mind away.
Wow. Wow. Um, I know that listeners are going to be wondering, even though it's not perhaps at the center of the spiritual meaning of what you're saying. Where are you now with your career?
Mm,
Do you
yeah,
are you looking forward to competing again? The possibility of
yeah,
competing again?
yeah. I'm trying to make it to Tokyo. My injury is much better. I had to completely stop with my practices in the summer and completely go back to therapy. So I only did therapy treatments for a couple of months and then started to run a little bit, and I feel the progress. It's a huge progress. I can do so many things that couldn't before. And now, at the beginning of next year, I will take MRI and see
Hmm.
what is going on, and then probably start to train, go back to my indoor, and
Hmm.
start that process of trying to get into shape. And unfortunately, as I said, I haven't jumped in competitions since 2016. So even if I come back this year, I don't expect too much, but I would I would need one season to, I think, to get back to that big heights.
Hmm.
I have experience on my side, and that's always a good thing. But I'll give it a go because things are improving. So
Hmm.
I think I feel like I should. But afterwards, there is always like possibility to, to do some public talking, public speak. I saw a very good potential in that, just talking about sport, talking about faith, talking about, what I've, because my experience is I think, people want to hear, but about the struggles, and about the real things, um, and I think there are a lot of things to talk about, and I'm very grateful for this experience.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I don't know what I think it will just open. If I'm open, just God will show me the way of,
Hmm.
about this professional career after this career. Um,
Oh yeah,
I'm
he
not
has a
worried. Yeah,
plan. You don't have to worry
yeah,
about
yeah.
that. I
That's
know you.
good. That's good because I don't have any. Yeah, I have no plans anymore, and it took me
Mm.
years to just admit that.
Did you and your brother end up? It sounds like you and your brother ended up bringing your parents back closer to God.
Yeah, we wanted them to get married to church. That was first thing, but my mom was like, um, "Can I wear a white dress?" I said, "Okay, mom, I guess you can." She was like so excited, to get married into the church, and um, um, to be honest, to see my parents, walking down the aisle, I was crying. As you know, so far I cry every time when something is like, when I'm happy, when I'm sad, I'm crying a lot. But I became more emotional after conversion, definitely. So I see things from different perspective, and that was one of the biggest miracles, to get them to get married to church, because older people, they just, when kids approach them, it's always a little harder, to go through them, but we managed
Wow.
everywhere, everyone were happy afterwards, and as I said, it changed our lives completely.
Wow. Well, I hope you enjoyed that witness testimony of Blanka. That was the content of today's Radio Maria show, Jesus the Promised Messiah of Judaism, and which I have reproduced here on this podcast with a separate little close. So, with that, we have come to the end of the show. We've come to the end of 2019. And let me wish you all a very blessed and holy rest of the Christmas season and a very, very blessed and fruitful coming new year of 2020. And with that, it's Roy Schoeman saying bye for now And please join us again on Jesus, the Promised Messiah of Judaism, on Radio Maria or repeated in this podcast.